Welcome to another edition of the Cathedral Check-In. My name is Donald Hunt, and I'm Director of Music at Christ Church Cathedral. Many of you know that every year, for about 12 years now, we've been commissioning a new Christmas carol to be sung at our service of lessons and carols in December. This year's carol was commissioned by composer Andrew Balfour, who's with me in a Zoom call today. Andrew is the founder and artistic director of Camerata Nova in Winnipeg. His indigenous opera, Mishabu is Realm, and you can tell me if I've got that wrong, Andrew.
No, it's fine.
Okay, it was performed by the Atelier Lyrique de l'Opéra de Montréal and the Highlands Opera Workshop in Haliburton, Ontario. He's also written music for the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, the Regina Symphony Orchestra, and the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, the Ensemble Caprice, the Kingston Chamber Choir. And in 2017, he was awarded the Canadian Senate Gold Medal for Artistic Achievement. So a very lauded composer and a busy guy, Andrew. What was your first thought when I called you up and said, would you write us a carol, given how busy you are?
Well, like we mentioned before, like I was really kind of attracted to, or actually, I grew up as an Anglican choir boy in Winnipeg at All Saints Anglican Church. So we did the full-on trappings of Anglican liturgy and the wonderful music. And I grew a great love for early music, which I still do to this day. But I kind of felt also my father was, when he retired, went to, my mother and father moved to Victoria in the late 80s. And he was a long-time assistant clergy at St. Luke's Parish, but also had a connection to the Christ Church Cathedral. As a kid, I went to, when we went to Victoria every summer, so we had many family and friends, and I always had fond memories of Christ Church, and know that there's a very active, still to this day, active and wonderful choral program, music program. And so I kind of felt, even though I was busy, I kind of wanted to contribute to your wonderful series of commissioning composers. I know many of the composers you've commissioned in the past, so it's a great honor to be part of this wonderful tradition of commissioning composers and keeping choral music, and especially music around Christmas, alive and relevant. I think that's very important.
Yeah, it's interesting that people have this preconceived notion that if they go to a Christmas service, that it's going to be all of the things they've heard before, right? And
Yeah.
in some cases that's true, but it's important to keep it alive with new carols, and in this case, an old text.
Yes.
What inspired you to take up this text?
Well, I've always been inspired by old medieval texts. As I mentioned before, I'm Cree, and I'm a 60s scooper, and I was lucky enough to be adopted into a wonderful music family. But my family was always we had like thousands of records in my household, and a lot of the records I was really attracted to were early music. So I kind of felt like, some of those old medieval texts, there is no rose, Lohauer rose, like, like as the one I chose, Sing We Noel, really captivated me. So I kind of felt like I came across this text, and I kind of thought, I'd like to write my music to this text, because I find it, rather than the jingle bells and White Christmas, which, is fine in some ways, but I think there's still relevance to this idea of those old texts that have a lot of, other meanings, and especially the macaronic text of English and Latin, which Sing We Noel is like. I've always been attracted to that, and I kind of was. It was really fun to write this piece for your choir. Like, actually, even though I've been busy, but I write a lot of bigger orchestral or choral stuff. But this was a really nice. This was a really nice pace for me to be able to write a piece like this.
I'm just going to read a bit of the text just so people know what we're talking about. So it's a medieval text, and these are the words that Andrew has said. It's Noel sing we, both all and some. Now Rex Pacificus is come. Exhortum est in love and liss. Now Christ his grace he gan us gis, and with his body brought to bliss, both all and some. Gloria tibi, a and bliss. So as he said, he used the word there, macaronic, which means mixing different languages. So we've got Latin and English here. And And there are some pretty heavy concepts in the bit of the text you selected about, substitutionary atonement and, Christ with his body bringing us bliss. How do you how did you pick up on that in your setting of the carol?
I think in just terms of like you have to look at text very carefully, and also the fact that translations. I had a very good I came across it on the internet, and but I was familiar with this text before, but I didn't really. I was much younger, so I as an older adult, I really kind of delved into the fact that wow, it's pretty deep. And so if you in terms of the many aspects of the coming of Jesus Christ and Messiah and what have you, I think that there's so many things you could do musically, especially for the choral voice. Like we've been doing this for 2,000 years. This idea of both celebrating but also reflecting on this idea of so many different perspectives of what Christmas means and what this idea of. So I mean, I'm just like, again, honored to be able to contribute to this, but I feel that musically speaking, I had something to say. And I think composers, even from 500 years to 1,000 years from now, will still have something to say, bring some new meaning or new perspectives of what this idea of is the birth of Christ. So I kind of feel that it's still relevant in this day, and it's still really important to be able to bring fresh new perspectives in a musical or choral way, because that's what we do, and I'm just think it's so great.
We read it through for the first time last Thursday, and we really enjoyed it. And one of the things we particularly enjoyed was those moments where the entrances are kind of all staggered by an eighth note. That's really fun, and really worked on trying to get that right. The other thing I noticed about it is there's a certain kind of darkness to it, and a certain insistence on a repetition of motives, which I find kind of sinister in a way. But although it kind of gets positive at the end, Rex Patrick has come. It was just really enjoyable. Can I ask you a question about, because you mentioned your Cree, but were adopted by Anglicans, and you're now sort of a composer in the Western tradition, but dealing with lots of Indigenous issues. Is there anything you can say about that? Is there a struggle there for you, or part of you when I phoned you up and said, would you write a Christmas carol for a Christian Christmas service? Was there any kind of struggle there?
Yeah, I think so. And I think when we talked at the very early days, we're still going through a lot of trauma in the Indigenous community about the legacy of the relationship between Indigenous and the church, and of course the finding of the bodies of our young ones that were lost, and the residential schools, and I'm an optimist by nature, and I still feel that we all have a voice. Like I said, right now I'm in Banff, Alberta, doing a residency with classical musicians or Indigenous classical musicians, and we are constantly talking about that on a daily basis. How do we heal? How do we reconcile? How do we adapt a relationship with a settler country? And how do we forgive? How do we really reconcile? And I think that I am not a practicing Christian, just to be straightforward, but I believe in everything. And I also believe in the idea of forgiveness. And I think that if anything we can take away from the ideals of the church and the ideals of Christ is like it's about forgiveness. And the forgiveness is not a destination. It's a long and sometimes an endless journey. And reconciliation is the same way as well too, because there is not going to be an end game for reconciliation. It's going to take a lifelong, never-ending journey. So in my little way, I try to basically understand other perspectives, and I try to understand the tragedy and trauma that my people have gone through. I'm a musician, a composer, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of power to the art There's a lot of power to vocal, choral music. I am steeped into Western classical music, so to speak, but I love a lot of it. I love a lot of choral music from the Renaissance. I'm big into Lassus and Palestrina and William Byrd and Thomas Tallis, of course, as you know. But I think that there's many meanings to that music, but I think that music can be healing, and that's why I basically decided when you contacted me that I really wanted to contribute to the ongoing journey, because music is all about healing, and I think that that's the only way we can get to true reconciliation and true forgiveness, is to understand each other. And there's many Indigenous, composers and artists that I know of across the world, really, that are really, their voices are finally being heard in their own terms. My terms is classical music and choral music, so that's why I accepted this commission.
Andrew, thank you. I'm so glad that you did. We're delighted to offer this piece for the first time. So just so our viewers know, the carol service is on Sunday, December 19th at 4 p.m. It's fully subscribed in terms of in-person attendance, but you can watch it on the live stream at 4 o'clock via our website. You can also watch it 3 times on Czech TV here in Victoria. That's on December 19th at 8 p.m., December 24th, Christmas Eve at 10 p.m., and Christmas Day, December 25th at 11 a.m. Andrew Balfour, I'm really grateful for your time and for your talent and for this new piece that you've brought to birth and that we're helping to bring to birth.
Gee, miigwech, Donald, with great honor and thanks. I really appreciate that. Miigwech.